Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. Welcome back to another Division 2 video. My name is Prime and today we're gonna dive in all the buffs, all the weapons that got buffed in the PTS Phase 1. So don't forget, it's still the PTS, we're still testing things out, so there are things subject to change, but these are all the buffs and it brings up a very interesting thing within the meta. So without further ado, let's dive right in and let me show you everything that has been boosted. So for this video I have made a chart for every single weapon category, LMGs, SMGs, ARs, LMGs, you name it, everything that got buffed throughout the PTS Phase 1. I checked it in-game and of course over the patch notes for the PTS. So let's dive right in and let's start with the assault rifles, and this is what I've made. And as you can see, there are three things that will be buffed over every single category. That's weapon damage, RPM, and mag size. So starting with assault rifles, we have the ACR family, so every single ACR that's in the game. That's why I put it down as family, because I will not put out every single ACR in the game, and that's exactly the same for all the other weapons. So the ACR family gets an extra 10% weapon damage. The CTAR family gets an extra 10 mag size. The F2000 family gets an extra 50 RPM and an extra 10 mag size. The FAL family gets an extra 5% weapon damage. The G36 family gets an extra 50 RPM. The Honey Badger and the Savage Wolverine will get an extra 5 mag size. The MK6 family gets an extra 10% weapon damage. And at last we have the P416 family, and that gets an extra 50 RPM. Especially the F2000 family will be very interesting when the update drops. So let's jump over to the SMGs. Same thing, weapon damage, RPM, mag size, starting with the AUG family, that will get an extra 10% weapon damage and an extra 25 RPM. The CMMG Banshee and the Grudge will get an extra 5% weapon damage and 50 RPM. The MP5 family will get an extra 6 bullets in the mag. The MP7 family will get a 5% weapon damage boost and 50 RPM. Then we have the T821 family will get an extra 10% weapon damage. The SMG9 family will gain an extra 50 RPM. The M1928 family will gain an extra 10% weapon damage, same as for the UMP45 family, gaining an extra 10% weapon damage. And this looks pretty good. I don't know why they chose to go for only 6 extra bullets in the MP5 family, but after some calculations we can definitely see which submachine gun will be on top of the meta after the update. And then let's jump over to the rifles. The ACR SS will gain an extra 10% weapon damage. The USC family will gain an extra 10% weapon damage. The UIC-15 Mod 2 will gain an extra 30% weapon damage. Same as the M16A2 family will gain an extra 30% weapon damage as well. The MDR family will gain a 10% weapon damage and 20 RPM. The MK47 family will gain an extra 20% weapon damage. The MK17 family will gain an extra 25% weapon damage. Same as the SIG 716 family, that will gain an extra 25% weapon damage as well. So most of the boosts are within weapon damage. Only the MDR family will gain an extra RPM. And then let's jump over to the MMRs, and as you can see, it's only 5 different ones. The M700 family will gain an extra 10% weapon damage. The SRS family will gain an extra 10% weapon damage. The SR1 family will gain an extra 30% weapon damage. Same as for the SVD family, will gain an extra 30% weapon damage. And then at last we have the 308 family that will gain an extra 10% weapon damage and 20 RPM. So I'm very curious what the SVD will do after the update. Of course, we all know it's very bouncy, but gaining that extra 30% weapon damage could be very interesting. Then let's jump over to the LMG buffs, and it's only one because every single LMG in the game will gain 20%, except for the Iron Lung that will gain an extra 10%. So every LMG within the game, an exotic or high-end, will gain an extra 20% weapon damage. So let's jump over to the last category, and those are of course the exotics. These are all the exotics that are boosted within the PTS Phase 1, but there are still a few things missing versus the PTS Phase 2, so of course I will keep you updated, but these are the exotics that are buffed within PTS Phase 1. The Eagle Bearer gains an extra 50 RPM. The Iron Lung, just like I explained, gains an extra 10% weapon damage. The Ruthless and the Merciless gain an extra 10% weapon damage as well. The Ravenous gains an extra 25% weapon damage. The Mantis gains an extra 30% weapon damage. The Dread Edict an extra 15%. And then the Pestilence, the Blue Screen, and the Bullet King, like I mentioned before with the LMGs, gaining an extra 20% weapon damage as well. As you can see, the Pestilence is not on this list as it is an LMG as well, but it didn't get that 20% buff yet. Like I said, it's still the PTS Phase 1. We're getting Phase 2 next weekend, so then it will probably be fixed because the Pestilence will gain that extra 20% weapon damage as well. And that's pretty much it for all the stats. Quick and easy video flying through every single thing that got buffed within the weapon categories, and I think that the Eagle Bearer is gonna be on top. The F2000 is gonna be a serious contender, but I have a few more videos ready for you, especially tomorrow, as I'm gonna show you the meta change within the assault rifle category, and that's gonna be very interesting. But that's it. Thank you very much for sticking until the end. If you're still here, you are a freaking legend. Make sure to hit that like button if you liked the video or helped you out in any way or form. And of course, if you're new here, you want to be updated about the Division 2, the Division Universe, and the future Division 3, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And I will see you in the next one. PurePrime out.